Welcome to Season 2 of EdLab, a podcast of the University of Virginia School of Education and Human Development. I'm your host, Audrey Breen.
If you kind of looked at the 22 players on the field at any time, probably about a quarter of them have had an ACL surgery at some point.
Wow.
Because young people who are really active and do jumping and cutting and decelerating sports are the kind of prime population.
Young people who undergo ACL knee surgery are typically eager to recover and get back to their activities of choice. But what happens when that day arrives and they don't quite trust that they are ready? I can't wait for you to hear my conversation with Chris Kuenze, an associate professor of kinesiology here at the UVA School of Education and Human Development. A high school knee injury of his own would eventually lead Chris into a career spent working to improve outcomes for those who have had ACL surgery. In today's episode, Chris shares how the mental health part of ACL recovery is just as important as the physical recovery. Welcome, Chris. Thank you so much for spending some time with us. I'm so glad you're here.
Thanks for having me. I'm excited to be here.
Just to get us started, can you give us a little bit of sense of sort of how you ended up here, a little bit of background?
Sure. Yeah, I was lucky enough to do my PhD here, I guess like 12 years ago now. Oh, my goodness. Joe Hart was my advisor, and I had a dual role between School of Ed and orthopedic surgery and kind of learned what I really liked to do and what I was passionate about. So after I graduated, I went and worked at the University of Miami and Michigan State University for a combined 10-ish years. And Joe moved on to bluer pastures, I guess. He's
Yes.
at UNC Chapel Hill now.
Right.
I was fortunate enough to be able to apply. I was in a good spot in my life that I could think about coming back. I always kind of wanted to. I feel like a lot of us have that
Yes.
sensation when we leave. And I was lucky enough to get the job. So I'm starting my 4th year now, which feels like I just moved. That's
great.
Yeah, it's been great.
We will do some deep dives into some of the projects you're working on, but give us a sort of sense of what your scholarship is.
Sure. I think it's actually best. Like, I was a 16-year-old who hurt my knee in a stupid snow accident. And I lost my junior and senior year of like high school sports. And so from that point on, I had a really good physical therapist that I liked a lot. And I like worked in a physical therapy clinic through high school and when I'd come home during college, and I kind of fell in love with making people better. And so I initially went and did my college and grad school training to be like a licensed athletic trainer and actually work with sports teams and be more hands-on in the clinical sense. By the time I finished my master's, I kind of figured out that I had questions and I wasn't as interested in day-to-day, show up at the clinic and do care. So that's what pushed me to come here for my PhD. And since then, I've really developed an interest in especially young people that have had ACL surgery, anterior cruciate ligament surgery, and not so much like how does the surgery work. I don't really care so much about the nuts and bolts, like literal nuts and bolts.
Right.
But I do care a lot more about how they experience their surgery, and then what it looks like for them to experience recovery. Do they ever fully recover? Do they feel like they're recovered? And what can we do to support that recovery in a way that makes them feel like it was a better experience that led them to like healthy behaviors in the long term?
Got it. I'm a sports fan, and so I have heard about ACL injuries all the time. But can you give us a sense of who is typically experiencing ACL injuries? How are they often injured, and then kind of what that population looks like through surgery and after surgery?
Absolutely. I just as a funny aside, I was at a friend of mine has a daughter and a son who play very elite competitive soccer in the area. They play for Skyline Elite, and they're all over the place. And they played in town for once, which doesn't happen all that often. And so I went out and just hung out with them for a little bit. And I was joking with my friend that if you kind of looked at the 22 players on the field at any time, probably about a quarter of them have had an ACL surgery at some point.
Wow.
Because young people who are really active and do jumping and cutting and decelerating sports are the kind of prime population. It doesn't mean Older people don't tear their ACL. I've worked with and treated patients all the way up to 68 years old.
Oh, wow.
And I've worked with patients as young as 9 years old. So the spread is quite a bit. But if we had to like zoom in on who's your prime target, it's probably 15 or 16 years old up to about 23 or 24 years old. Very active and usually in like competitive, unplanned sports. So a planned sport would be like, I don't know, like diving or something like that. Like you sort of know what's going to happen before you do it. Now, it might not go well,
right,
but
right.
You have a
yes,
plan, right?
You know what the thing,
yeah. An unplanned sport is basketball. Like I have a play, but I don't know what the defense is going to do until it happens. And so I've got to work in real time to decision make and, change my body posture and all those things. And sometimes it's just a little too much for folks. And so they end up hurting themselves.
What does post-surgery look like? How many of these patients, I guess, are returning to sport? What does that look like?
Yeah, for the typical patient, usually within the first 2 weeks after their surgery, they're probably having a follow-up with their surgeon, and they're also starting some form of formal rehab. And then ideally, that goes on for 9 months or so. I mean, the hope here, it used to be, I think historically, if you said ACL injury, people would say 6 months. And now I think since about 2016 or 2017, we've really had a mindset change. There's some really cool research that came out of Scandinavia and then got reproduced here in the US that basically showed if you're patient and you can wait till 9 months, you're way less likely to hurt yourself again, and you're more likely to return to sport successfully. So I think we're starting to crack the veneer, the veneer a little bit on that kind of outdated thinking, and parents are much more likely to be willing to wait a little while before they start to think their kids should be back to sports. Or in the young adult population that we see here, they're a bit more patient. But that rehab is, there's protocols out there, but every university, hospital has a different protocol.
Yeah.
Every surgeon has a different protocol. So it's really kind of heterogeneous. It's a little all over the place in what a patient's experience could be. And I think that's part of the struggle is like patients don't know what to expect because there isn't some like uniform expectation. It's not like you broke your forearm.
Right.
So you're going to be in a cast for 6 to 8 weeks and then you're going to get out and it's going to look a little weird, but it's going to work pretty good. And, 4 weeks later, you're going to feel pretty normal and move on with your life. Here, some people run really early after their surgery. Other patients wait 3 months or 4 months. Some people do jumping and cutting 5 months after surgery. Some people never do it in rehab and wait until they're back to sports.
Wow.
So it's challenging for adults and for kids,
Yeah.
but especially kids. Kids like kind of routine and
What's
to
the
understand
next thing?
what's next and give me a goal and I'll attain it. Or, if I know what the homework question is, I'll answer it. And I don't think we do a really good job at maybe laying out that expectation in a way that's consistent for them.
So you have started a pilot study. I would love to hear a little bit about what that study is and what specifically you're trying to solve.
Sure. Yeah, I was very fortunate. I have a good collaborator. I used to work at Michigan State with Shelby Baez, who now we actually left at the same time. And so she works at UNC Chapel Hill. I work here. And so we've kept our collaborations going over time. She's like the international expert in the psychological response to ACL injury. She does interventional work and observational work. She's actually a trained mental health professional. So she consults for the New York Liberty and is like their mental health consultant and does all this cool stuff.
Okay, that's very cool.
Yeah, no one ever says that about my stuff. But no, she's amazing.
You too, Chris.
She's amazing, and I'm really lucky that I get to work with her. And so we've been collaborating on this idea of like the lived experience of the recovery, because there's lots of people who do work on, can I make your muscle stronger or can I make you jump higher? Yep. And I like that stuff too. I think it's important. But if the mental well-being and the overall physical well-being don't kind of track with those measures, it's just a fun game we played, kind of, Right. So we've basically found that patients really struggle to be physically active, and that's a little different than playing sports.
Got it.
At 1 year and 2 years after surgery. And our theory is like if you're not playing sports at the level that you were, or you're not satisfied with your sport success rate, or you're not making as many shots as you used to, or you're not getting as many minutes. Patients kind of self-select out of some things, but they don't necessarily replace it with new types of activity. So
interesting.
yeah. And so we're trying to figure out ways like how can we make activity promotion. How can we get people to like be interested in activity and get them to start to increase their activity in a way that doesn't feel like homework, and in a way that also supports that kind of whole person recovery. So cool enough, here at UVA, there's a new core facility called the Digital Technologies Core. Laura Barnes from engineering kind of put in I think it was a grand challenge funded kind of deal. And so I've been working with their group now for about 7 months. And so we built this kind of cool intervention that pairs Headspace-based like mental health skills development and mindfulness with physical activity promotion that's kind of driven by an Oura Ring, which I'm wearing mine right now. And the idea is that like if we can make you feel better about your knee and less anxious, a little bit more in tune with your body, and then start to provide some gentle physical activity goals that just tell you to get up and move around a little more often, or to kind of engage in some intentional activity from time to time. That's likely, it's kind of like putting medicine and ice cream together or something like that, you know, instead of just saying you should be more active, get off the couch, which we've all tried that before. And it doesn't work very well. So yeah, it's been great. We're at the end of our development process now. We actually had a meeting yesterday. We have a viable product. It works.
Woo-hoo.
Shelby and I are like pilot testing it on ourselves right this moment. And the goal is that we'll start a preliminary kind of like, we call it a feasibility study, which is mostly like, one, does it work? Like, does it break all the time or doesn't it?
Right. 2,
can patients actually operate the equipment, and like, can it work for them at home? And then 3, do they like actually use it if you ask them to? And so that'll hopefully start here in the fall. And then we're also going to submit some proposals for federal funding and other stuff to go along with it. But yeah, we're, I think, just really excited because we've been observing the problem for so long. And this is the first opportunity that we've had, thanks to resources here at UVA, to like build a custom intervention that we feel like is slick enough that patients will think it's cool and they'll want to do it, but also based in behavior change and all these other theories that we know are the only way that you're actually going to get somebody to change their behavior. Yeah.
So can you walk us through what a participant might experience?
Yeah, absolutely. So we're hoping that this will be a fully remote study. So, and the idea there is it enables us to kind of involve the most people, which from a research perspective, it's really important to be able to have access to a patient population, but also it helps us break down some barriers. Affluent, older people tend to have more time and resources to participate in research, and that's not the target audience for our intervention. We find that our patient population, especially the ones who struggle most, tend to be young patients who are engaged in high levels of activity. They're busy, they have school and other responsibilities. Often they're coming from communities that are not the most affluent in the area. And so we wanted to make sure it was something we could offer that would be able to be accessible to anybody. And so hopefully the way it'll work is patients will hear about our study. We're hoping to enroll people right as they graduate from rehab, right around 9 to 10 months. And so we have great access to some clinics in town where we'll be able to maybe leverage those relationships. And then basically we'll give them the app, and they'll also get an Oura Ring at that time. And for the first 10 days, nothing will happen. We're just going to ask them to wear the Oura every day.
And that's like a fitness tracker.
Yeah. It looks like, mine has like a silicone band on it, but it's just like a really big wedding ring kind of looking thing. Not that comfortable to wear sometimes. But
at least you know. I love that you're doing it first.
That was myself and my doctoral student Catherine have both been wearing one for a few. Well, I'm on like 3 months now, but
wow.
For the first 10 days, nothing will happen, because we just want to make sure that they're actually going to wear the thing and that they don't have any problems and that their phone works and that they don't lose it and all that stuff. And it also means that we can collect some of their physical activity data, because we want to set goals based on what they're capable of doing. Not some pie in the sky.
Just arbitrary numbers.
Yeah, everybody talks, 10,000 steps, 8,000 steps. That's great, but if you're only taking 4,000 today and I tell you to take 8,000, like that's not going to work. And so once they're in for 10 days and they prove that I will actually wear it and I didn't lose it at a party or something like that, then for the first for the first 2 weeks, they'll just get these kind of sports injury and sports rehabilitation specific mindfulness modules from Headspace.
Okay.
Headspace is like a commercially available app that you can download. They have free resources, and then they've got paid resources. We're using a mixture of both.
Okay.
And those are just quick 10 to 15 minute kind of mindfulness or kind of self-awareness, body scanning type modules that will help them to hopefully kind of diminish their sense of anxiety around the health of their knee or the risk of re-injury. So that's kind of our primary goal, is to get people in a better, not to be jokey, but in a better headspace to take an intervention. And then the hope after that is once we've got them through their first 2 rounds of modules, then we'll start to kind of wean in the physical activity goals. And so the intervention itself will go on for 8 weeks.
Okay.
And so with this pilot study, the hope is really to take some pre-measures of anxiety and kind of overall mental well-being, and then things like pain and symptoms. And we'll kind of measure that at the beginning, in the middle, and at the end. And then during the intervention, the digital technology folks are great, and they build in these very cool, like, single item questionnaires that randomly pop up, but it turns out they're not random. Like they kind of pop up at times that we think it might be important. The goal with those eventually is that they're actually going to be triggered by activity patterns that the individual participates in. So if we have a high school student they're active at 3:00 every day because of track practice, then could we send them a questionnaire either at 2:30 about how are you feeling about your activity,
about what's going to happen,
or at 5:30 about how was your activity today. It's cool working with the digital technology folks because stuff that I think is like mind-blowingly hard, you'll send them an email on Monday morning, and by like 2:00 they've got like a fully functioning, beautiful,
we can totally
the design is wonderful kind of thing. So it's been cool to work with them.
We talk a lot about partnerships on the podcast, and I just want to see if I can get all of the partnerships so far that you have mentioned. So we have the Oura Ring and the Headspace tech folks. We've got your partner at UNC Chapel Hill, and then the digital technology folks here at UVA.
Yes.
Oh, and the clinics that you guys are already in partnership with, where you may get some participants in the study. Are there others? Did I miss any?
Not for this specific study. I went to a conference this summer and was talking to some students, like a mentorship panel thing, and they were asking me, like, what's your research superpower? And just like, well, it's actually just getting other people to work together to do really good stuff. I feel like I'm a little bit like kind of a Tom Sawyer, Huck Finn situation sometimes, but with good intentions. I'm not just trying to get out of my work. It's just that I really do find that when you get these people who are like really expert and really good at what they do, and you put them in rooms together, somehow you come out of that room usually with like a much better solution than you possibly could have come up with.
I love that question. Your research superpower.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, back to your point about what's going on with these, these patients who are recovering, you could look at just their physical capacity and you would miss an element of their experience where they've got anxiety or some real mental health challenges. And so just solving the physical problem isn't solving the problem. Like, you really do need these people at the table. Yeah,
absolutely. I was actually yesterday was editing a paper that we have coming out of the big group that I was talking about. And it's actually what Shelby's postdoctoral fellow who's writing the paper. And we were just looking at if we profiled patients based on like criteria we use to say you like pass and are ready to go back to doing sports. Like how many patients pass on physical measures and fail on sort of mental health related, these anxiety and sort of fear related measures. How many pass on the fear and anxiety measures but fail on the physical measures, and then each combination. And so we it's this term called like misalignment or malalignment that we're using, and it's like about 75% of patients have some malalignment in their late phase rehab. If you just, the whole point of the paper is to make that point. I mean, that's a very astute point. Like it was entirely to say, if you just measure physical well-being, that's great. But actually the funny part about our knowledge of like what predicts a re-injury or a second injury is that physical measures maybe explain about 20% of what's going on. And if you measure like fear, confidence, emotional regulation, fear avoidance, stuff like that. It's like 60% of what's going on. And that's been in new, like longitudinal studies, big cohort studies, randomized controlled trials. I mean, it's been in all types of designs. And it's not that physical doesn't matter.
Right.
It's just that physical is like wrapped in this, kind of bubble of everything else that's going on. You could be the highest jumper and the fastest runner, but if you're deeply not confident in your ability and you're nervous about your surroundings and you're adopting behaviors that avoid, the things that make you fearful, then all of a sudden it doesn't matter if you're fast. It's sort of interacting with this other thing. And the other thing is true. Like you could be really confident and low fear and feel great, but not be physically ready. And young boys are notorious for this.
I'm literally cringing.
Young boys like 14, 15, and 16, this is their profile, the high confidence, low function profile. And so we get scared for them too. It's a different, and they need different care. You can't, that's not like, if you need physical care, that's weightlifting and intervention from a trained either strength and conditioner, professional or PT.
Yeah.
If you're mentally struggling, that's a completely different thing. I mean, physically improving will help you feel better, but that's not the right intervention.
Right.
And so our hope in this study is that a lot of the interventions that are out there are like to make your muscle big.
Yep.
The hope with our project is that this can be an intervention that's easy, adaptable, and it actually helps address that other side of things that people kind of say like, well, now what do I do?
Yeah. And if it works wholly virtually, then you've got real accessibility victory. You can.
Yep. As a Lego fan, I think of just kind of plugging it in on the side of the interventions that are already there. You just kind of put it in there, and hopefully it's just a piece that you can add without it being like onerous or expensive or cumbersome.
Right.
So
I've been wrapping up podcasts with this question, which is, what would you hope to know in 10 years that you don't know now?
Sure. On the joke side of things, it would be like, has Liverpool won like 4 more Premier Leagues and 2 Champions Leagues? But no, in all seriousness, I do think I want to know, like in cardiovascular rehab, just to say, they are so far ahead of where we are on the orthopedic side of things.
Really?
Because they're able to study things like dose response. They can tell how much of an intervention do you need in order to get better, or how much would make you worse, or is it a timing issue, or all these kind of like interesting characteristics that are essential to provide a good intervention. In orthopedics, we're still like sledgehammers and railroad ties. Like we are just kind of really scratching the surface of what interventions should look like. And so I really hope that in 10 years, we've got a lot of people like Shelby and other folks who are actually putting their whole time and effort into intervening, so that we can start to get to a point where we understand, when do you need what and how much of it is actually needed to get you to be better, because we don't know. We have these protocols and they're sort of made up based on maybe biologic healing, or like we think this could work, but there's so little in there that's actually driven by like, randomized control trials that actually test dose response and actually, try to figure out what components are necessary. So that's a lot to get done in 10 years, but at least if we can get moving in the right direction, I would feel really good.
Oh, you've got some brilliant people on your team for sure. So I have confidence in you. Well, thank you, Chris, for spending time with us. I would love to talk about what we find from this pilot. So let's put a pin in you coming back. But thank you for your time.
Yeah, thank you for having me.
EdLab is a production of the University of Virginia School of Education and Human Development and WTJU 91.1 FM. EdLab is produced and hosted by Audrey Breen with support from Mary Garner McGee and Sage Tongway. Our music is Palms Down by Blue Dot Sessions. You can subscribe to EdLab wherever you get your favorite podcasts.